You know those family photos where everyone's smiling, but deep down, the truth is rotting just beneath the surface? That was us. The perfect little family with the perfect little son. Mark, the golden boy. Teachers adored him. Coaches worshipped him. My parents, they practically built a shrine in his honor. And me? I was the forgotten daughter who always stood to the side. Mark was kind, too kind. The kind of kind that didn't feel real. While I struggled for C's and cried alone in my room, he was out winning awards and collecting scholarships. My mother would always say, "Why can't you be more like Mark?" I stopped trying. I stopped caring. But I never stopped watching. On my 28th birthday, we were all gathered at my parents' house. Wine flowed. Laughter echoed. Then my aunt, tipsy and nostalgic, blurted out, "It's crazy how much Mark looks like the neighbor from back then." The room went silent. Mark laughed. But something twisted in my gut. I brushed it off for weeks, told myself I was overreacting. But once you hear the truth scratch at the walls of your mind, it's impossible to unhear it. I started digging. Photos, timelines, memories. Nothing lined up. My mom claimed she went into labor early, but the birth certificate said full term. I saw a crack. That crack became an obsession. I ordered a DNA test for myself under the excuse of curiosity. A few weeks later, I convinced Mark to do it too. He thought it was funny, said I was always into weird stuff. I laughed, but my hands were shaking. I had no idea that what I was about to discover would destroy the only family I'd ever known. The results arrived on a Wednesday. I stared at them for over an hour without opening them. My heart pounded like it knew something my brain couldn't grasp yet. When I finally clicked, my entire body went cold. Mark and I, 0 shared DNA. Not half, not quarter, nothing. Statistically impossible. I thought it was a mistake. I rechecked the names, the barcodes, the samples. Everything matched. My hands went numb. I sat there alone in my apartment, the world silent around me. I remember whispering aloud, "He's not my brother?" As if saying it could reverse the reality. But it couldn't. I didn't know what to do. Who do you tell when your family is built on a lie? I went to my best friend Claire, hoping she'd tell me I was crazy. Instead, she asked, "Are you going to tell them?" That question haunted me. It wasn't just about Mark. It was about the life we all thought we lived. The lie we breathed every day. 2 days later, I drove back to my parents' house. Mark was already there, helping Dad clean the gutters. I watched him from the car, heartbreaking. He looked so happy, so real. But now every smile felt like a mask. Every memory felt manufactured. I almost turned back, but I didn't. We were all sitting in the living room when I said it. I did a DNA test. Mark and I were not siblings. Silence. Then my mother's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered. My father's face turned to stone. And Mark? He just blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I couldn't answer, not yet. My mother stood up, trembling, as if her legs barely remembered how to carry her. She looked at my father, then at me, then at Mark. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. I asked again, this time firmer. "Did you adopt him? Did something happen you never told us?" My father finally spoke. One word. Sharp. "No." Mark looked like a child again, helpless and small. "What do you mean we're not siblings? That doesn't make sense." I handed him the printed report. He stared at it like it was written in a language he never learned. This is wrong. This has to be wrong." But I knew it wasn't. The silence in the room was its own confirmation. Then my mother broke. Her knees gave out, and she dropped to the couch. "I never thought this would come out," she whispered. Her voice was brittle, like old paper. It wasn't supposed to matter. He was ours. He is ours. My father didn't move. He just clenched his jaw. He knew. He had known all along. "What aren't you telling us?" I asked, my voice shaking. Mark was pale. He kept shaking his head. "Mom, what are you saying?" She looked up, tears in her eyes, and said the sentence that collapsed the room. "Mark is the son of another man." But I carried him. I lied to everyone, even myself. I thought I was prepared for any truth. I wasn't. "So you had an affair?" I asked, stunned. She nodded slowly. "Just once. Your father was traveling a lot, and I was lonely. I thought I was still safe. But then I got pregnant. And your father? He forgave me. We raised him together. No one else knew. Until now." Mark stood there, frozen. The golden sun, the favorite child, the shining light of the family, built on a lie. "So, who is my father?" he asked, voice cracking. My mother cried harder. "I don't know. I never saw him again. I don't even remember his last name. It was one night, a mistake. But you were never a mistake." My father finally spoke again, calm, cold, precise. "I wanted to tell you when you turned 18. Your mother begged me not to. She said it would destroy you. I should have told you. That was my mistake." Mark sat down slowly, eyes hollow. "So I'm just not even part of this family?" he asked. "Not by blood," my father replied, "but you're still my son." The air turned lead heavy. I couldn't breathe. "Why did you treat me like a shadow all my life?" I asked them both. "Why did he get everything, when I was the one who actually was your child?" My mother flinched. "Because we were trying so hard to make him feel like he belonged. We forgot you needed that too." Their apology didn't soothe anything. It made it worse. Years of neglect, of being the outsider in my own home, suddenly made sense. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because they were compensating for their own shame. I looked at Mark, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. Not as my brother, but as a stranger. But a stranger who had no idea he was living someone else's life. "I need air," he whispered, standing. He walked out the door, leaving it open behind him. My mother sobbed. My father sat silent. And I stood in the ruins of our perfect little family, holding the wrecking ball I never meant to swing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory I ever had with Mark. His 7th grade science fair win. His high school graduation. The time he defended me from bullies at the bus stop. None of it felt fake. But now, everything felt contaminated, like sweetness turned sour in my mouth. I texted him around midnight. "Where are you?" No reply. I checked his social media. Nothing. He'd vanished. My parents were calling me nonstop, asking if I'd seen him, heard from him, anything. For once, they were the ones who didn't have answers. I wanted to be cruel and ignore them. But I couldn't. Not now. The next morning, I found him. At the park we used to go to as kids. He was sitting on the swing set, staring at the ground. He looked older. Or maybe just heavier. Like the truth had aged him overnight. I sat on the swing beside him. Neither of us said anything for a while. Just wind and silence. Then he said, "You should have let me stay a lie." I didn't answer, because part of me agreed. I told him, "I didn't do this to hurt you." He nodded. "I know, but it still did." He looked up at the sky. All my life, I thought I was the glue holding our family together. Turns out, I was just the secret they built it around. I didn't want to take anything from you, I said. But I needed to understand why they never saw me. He looked at me, eyes red. I always wondered that too. In that moment, we were two orphans of the same lie. Two people who were raised as siblings, but were now strangers, bound by betrayal, not blood. After that, everything changed. We stopped speaking for weeks. Family dinners were canceled. Group chats went silent. Holidays passed with awkward excuses. My mother tried writing us letters. My father sent me a single message. You were right to dig. I just wish the truth had cost less. There was nothing left to say. But silence wasn't healing anyone. Mark finally broke it. He invited me to coffee. When I saw him, he was wearing the same jacket he wore the day he left our house, like time had frozen. I talked to a therapist, he said. She told me to ask questions. Start with the ones that scare me. I nodded. Me too. We shared stories. How I always felt invisible. How he always felt watched. How neither of us felt seen. We laughed a little, cried a little more. And somehow we found a space in between the pain where something like truth, or maybe forgiveness, could grow. Not as siblings, but as survivors of the same story. He asked me, "Do you think they ever loved us equally?" I said, "No. But I think they tried, and failed." He nodded. "That's enough for me." We didn't pretend everything would go back to normal, because there was no normal anymore. Just this: coffee, hard truths, and two people trying to build something honest from the wreckage. Before we left, he said, "You saved me, you know." I looked at him, confused. By breaking the lie, I didn't know who I was before. Now, at least I can try to figure it out. I smiled. Me too. And for the first time in our lives, we walked away not as golden child and forgotten girl, but as equals. Weeks passed, and the silence from our parents continued like an echo that refused to fade. I thought my mother would reach out again. She always did before. But this time, the shame seemed to have swallowed her whole. It was my father who broke first. He sent a voice note, shaky, unfiltered. "Come home. Please. Both of you." We agreed to meet. The same living room where everything had shattered now felt like a graveyard of illusions. My mother had aged 10 years in a month. Her eyes were sunken. Her hands clutched a photo album. "I've been looking through these," she said, trying to remember when we stopped being honest. Mark sat next to me, for the first time, not on the pedestal, but level with me. My father remained standing. He never sat anymore. Always pacing, like the guilt wouldn't let him rest. "We thought we were protecting you," he said, "but really we were protecting ourselves." The words cut deeper than he knew. "I want to know everything," Mark said. "All of it. Every detail you've kept from me." My mother took a breath that sounded like it might break her ribs. And then she told the story. How she met a man during a work trip. How it was brief, stupid, and selfish. How she hid the pregnancy. How my father made her choose. Secrecy or separation. "And you chose the lie," I said, voice low. She nodded. "Because I couldn't lose both of you." Mark didn't cry. He just closed the album in her lap. "You already did. You just didn't know it." And with that, he stood up. I followed. Because we weren't the children in this house anymore. We were what the truth had made us. That night, I wrote everything down. Every detail, every emotion, every broken piece of the life I thought I knew. Not to publish it, not to post it, just to see it on paper. To know I wasn't crazy. Sometimes the lie is so thick it makes the truth feel like madness. Writing was the only thing that made me feel sane again. Mark began doing the same. Journals, voice memos, therapy sessions. He said uncovering the lie felt like losing a limb, but at least now he knew which part of himself was missing. He even hired a private investigator to find his biological father, not for revenge, just for clarity. I want to see the face I've been borrowing my whole life. Weeks later, he found a lead. A man in Oregon who matched the timeline and the photo. They talked once. The man didn't want contact, said he had a family and couldn't deal with this. Mark was quiet for days after that. When I finally asked how he felt, he said, "At least I know he exists. That's more than I had before." Our parents tried to mend things, therapy, family dinners, but some things don't get fixed. They just get repainted. And we weren't interested in fresh paint. We wanted truth, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. We agreed to keep the distance, to build new versions of family from the pieces we still believed in. One night, Mark sent me a photo. Us, as kids, him in his baseball uniform, me with missing teeth. He captioned it, "We may not be siblings by blood, but damn, we did survive. Something together." I smiled. Not because it was sweet, but because it was real. And finally, that was enough. Months passed. The wound didn't fully close, but it stopped bleeding. Mark moved to another city, started teaching at a community college. I stayed behind, but we kept in touch. Weekly calls, sometimes just silence shared across the phone. We didn't need to speak to understand. Trauma had taught us a language of its own. My mother sent a letter on my birthday. Handwritten, shaky, cursive. No excuses. Just memories. "You used to cry every time I braided your hair. I thought it was because you were sensitive. I realize now it was because you just wanted me to look at you. And I didn't." I cried reading that. Not because it healed me, but because it acknowledged me. Mark came home for the holidays. Not to our parents' house, to mine. We cooked dinner together like two people building something from scratch. He showed me a tattoo he got on his shoulder, a DNA helix breaking apart into stars. "My identity collapsed," he said, "but somehow I'm more myself now than I ever was." We decided to visit our parents on New Year's Day, not for closure, just to show them we'd survived. When we walked through the door, my mother hugged us both like it might be the last time. My father didn't speak. He just placed a photo on the table. One of the three of us as kids. "We got it wrong," he said, "but you got it right." That was all we needed. Not perfection, not repair, just recognition. The lie had fractured our family. But the truth, painful, cold, raw, had made us real again, not as brother and sister, but as two people who chose to face the fire instead of living in the illusion. I tell this story now, not because I want pity, but because I know someone out there feels like the forgotten one, like the one on the edge of every photo. If that's you, know this. The truth might break you, but it can also rebuild you. I thought I was the background of someone else's spotlight. Turns out, I was the only one who saw the shadows. Families are strange. They're not always about blood. Sometimes they're built on loyalty, sometimes on lies, and sometimes the ones who were never supposed to be your family become the ones who understand you best. I never thought losing a brother would help me find a friend, but it did. Mark still calls every Sunday. We talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes we laugh. Sometimes we sit in silence. But every time, I hang up knowing we're still connected. Not by DNA, but by the truth we survived together. And somehow, that feels stronger than blood ever did. As for my parents, we keep the door open, but we don't live in their house anymore, emotionally or otherwise. They're learning, slowly, to love without control, to apologize without excuses, to see us not as roles they assigned, but as people we became. It's not perfect, but it's honest. So if you're holding a secret or suspecting one, I won't tell you what to do. But I'll say this: the truth can ruin everything, and still leave you freer than the most beautiful lie. I lost the brother I thought I had, but in the ashes of that loss, I found something more rare. I found myself.